about to listen to a conversation at the precipice of reality and understanding. I am John Patrick Morgan, and this is the Gatekeepers podcast. Hey, Red. Welcome to Gatekeepers.
Hello. Thanks for having me here.
You're so welcome. Thanks for being here. So just before we switched on the record, we were about to start talking about how we maybe can relate to living in the city and then also living in nature. And I think I read something about that in your past, in your background. Did you have an urban life before a more rural one?
Yeah. So I lived in London for 10 years, right in the middle of things in the city. And I was, it was a very different life. I was running my own design company, working for like 5-star London hotels and living quite a different life to the one I do now. And it was great. I think it's something you have to do for a while sometimes to kind of get that side of yourself out of the system. And yeah, it was great until a point, until it wasn't. And then I just kind of knew that I had to leave that all behind and like literally give up everything and go and live in a shack in the woods, which I did.
Yeah, I read that too. Yeah. So like, what does that mean? Does that mean, I guess I was wondering, like, did you like hunt food or did you like leave the shack and go get groceries? Like how off the grid were you?
So there was like an intermediate shack, which was kind of, I could still go and get groceries from the farmer's market and things like that. For 2 years, I lived in the intermediate shack before I went to like the deeper shack where, we grew our own food.
Okay.
We lived off grid. We, did all that kind of stuff. We didn't, I don't know if you can count like squirrels and pigeons as hunting food, but they were definitely on the menu sometimes.
They were on the menu. Yeah. I mean, I certainly would count that. Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a very, I mean, because when I moved to Maui to move to the countryside, like, having grown up in the suburbs and only went to grocery stores, it was still even a big shift, just like having food growing on our land. We've got a couple dozen different fruit trees and I have hens that I keep for eggs. And even that's like, wow, it's a pretty good amount of work that goes into it. And also, I mean, there's so many things, how abundant the earth is and it just keeps giving food, it doesn't stop. But then also like when I first came, I was like, oh yeah, we're going to be able to be self-sustaining, meaning like we're going to do everything ourselves. But then you realize really quickly, it doesn't make sense for one person to try and grow every single type of food. You have a community. And so I'm wondering, what was it like for you? Were you like literally on your own or did you come out of the deep shack to the farmer's market and commune with people still?
No, I mean, that was exactly what it was like. I mean, the deeper shack was where my soon to be husband was living. So he had kind of been there for a couple of years already and he'd set up a few like very basic amenities. The amenities got better when I moved in there. We got a bathroom and things like that when I moved in. But yeah, we had great ideals as well about growing everything ourselves. And I think, the first year when we really planned out this kind of this raised bed system on a big kind of on a 4-year rotation with everything we wanted to possibly eat in it, with something ridiculous like 42 raised beds or something. And we planned the whole thing out.
Wow.
And the first year after we planted everything and had it all growing, we were like, okay, this is crazy. We cannot possibly maintain this, It's one thing to plant it and then also to weed it, to feed it, to keep the pests off it, to protect it, all that kind of stuff, right?
So much.
So,
and every
so the
plant,
next year,
plant has a different requirement. Yeah.
Yeah, I think next year it came down to half that many. We had about 20 raised beds the next year, and also they were a bit of a walk away. We had a big field a little bit further away, and it was all happening in this big field. And so the next year there were half as many in the same field. The following year there was half as many again, and they were closer to the actual building. So yeah, I think I think like you say, quite quickly you realize that each tiny little thing that's involved in being off grid is a full-time job in itself. And when there's just two of you there trying to do it, it's impossible. You can't do it on your own.
Yeah. I was going to say, we have these ideals, right? That like, when we're in one environment, like the urban environment, and we idealize the opposite, it's like you're idealizing it from not really knowing it. Like, for example, when we had the vision of moving to Maui, I had a vision for a 4-bedroom house. because I needed like a bed for each of our kids and like my wife, and then a room for my office. And like, it was an innocent projection of my understanding of what kind of houses people lived in from where I grew up. What I didn't realize is that in Hawaii, oftentimes people have multiple structures on their property and they don't have like everything in one house. And so when we were looking for a house and we posted on like a local neighborhood social media thing, and we said we wanted a 4-bedroom house, a woman responded, say, well, I have a 1-bedroom house, but I think it will work well for your family. And I was like, what? But then we came and it was like, yeah, there's 1 bedroom, but there's a loft upstairs and there's a separate building you can use as an office, and there's a separate building that's for a guest house. And it's like, it's just a different style of living. And so, yeah, I think we kind of, that's one of my favorite things about doing something new is you kind of realize all the assumptions and expectations you had about it, and you get humbled pretty quickly. So let's talk about your art a little bit, and I'm sure we'll kind of weave in and out of it. But if I look up right now, I'm literally looking above my monitor from you to Dionysus. It just happens to be on the wall, like right behind me, your piece that I bought a couple years ago now. And just to share how I came across your work, is I have a coach, therapist, mentor here named Ed Fell. That he had a few of your pieces. I don't know if the name rings a bell because he's bought a few of your pieces, but he's
Cool.
yeah, you know that. So he's an incredibly deep man. I met him through an organization called the Mankind Project, and which I did some incredible shadow work with. And he just brought some of your drawings out during one of the sessions, and they all struck me immediately for how beautiful they were. But like the Dionysus one was like, I was just like hit like a tidal wave by it, and all I could say is that's me, and I didn't even know what that meant. And at that time, I was still caught up in the Catholic worldview that I was brought up in. Not that I was a practicing Catholic, but just like the only thing I understood when I saw horns was bad, evil, demon. But so there was like an immediate conflict from my stories about what that was, and this sense of identification with it, and so I immediately went home and just bought my own version of the print. And see, I knew a bit about Dionysus, but I'd never really studied the myths or really knew much about Dionysus from the actual history. The only access I had to it was as a symbol through reading Nietzsche, through The Birth of Tragedy. I don't know if you're familiar with where he talks. Have you familiar with The Birth of Tragedy?
No, not so much, no.
In Nietzsche? Okay, well, Nietzsche's one of his most famous works, The Birth of Tragedy, is about how in early Greek times, tragedy, which is the type of play that would happen on the stage, was when a single person would come out onto the stage, a single actor, and there would be a chorus in front of the stage, and then beyond that would be the audience. And the actor would do something improvisational, and then the chorus would respond, and the actor would respond to that. And so the actor kind of represented order, and the chorus represented chaos. And so Nietzsche said that the single actor represented Apollo, and that the chorus represented Dionysus. And it was the arc of tension between these two poles that created tragedy. And he talked about the death of tragedy being as they started adding more and more actors to the stage, and they started shrinking the chorus until it disappeared, and they removed the Dionysian aspect from the tragedy. And that was also reflected in Greek culture as they removed the Dionysian aspect from culture. And he said that's basically what's happened throughout the centuries up until today. And I think that it's continued, where Dionysus was basically removed. And even in your recent email, and I think, where you're talking about the importance of festival. And I also read something about Charles Eisenstein recently around that same theme. It's like the cost of that we're really feeling right now. So anyway, that was my exposure to Dionysus, but I never really knew the imagery, until I saw your piece. And I've always been fascinated with bringing kind of chaos back in and that arc of tension since reading Nietzsche. That's always felt true for me. But I wasn't really aware of the kind of the sexual element of it, right? Like the fertility side of it. It was more just like the chaos is what I was relating to it through. So that opened me up massively to understanding more of the energy that I've felt my whole life. I'm kind of talking for a while here, but I think it'll give you context and we can jam on it. Like growing up being really like having a lot of sexual energy as a young man, you know, just basically that leading my life, you know, not that I was hurting people or doing anything wrong, but that was what most consumed my attention. And now my company is called Creating, and I help people to create in their life, and I'm committed to one woman in that same, but I still have that same kind of energy moving through me. And sometimes like having judgment around the desire for the sexual impulses that come up was, I think, the same thing I saw when I saw the horns and thought, oh, that's bad. You know, like this story that I learned. And my wife actually, when I showed her the drawing, your drawing, she said, what do you think of when you see that? I think of, wow, it's like, it's cool, but it's also like, it's kind of confusing because it's like the demon is bad. And she's like, you know where that comes from, right? I was like, no. And she's like, well, that's the Catholic Church. And I was like, what, really? And so then I did the deep dive and I started learning about the goat connection, right? And this is a gift from a friend of mine. It's a goat with a crown on.
That's great.
So anyway, yeah, I mean, I could just talk to you for share for 2 hours about so much that's unfolded from this, and we'll get into it. But I guess what I really want to say is thank you for your willingness to trust in, let's say, the DNSN aspect enough in your life to be able to bring forth, to draw the gods. I think it's such a clever line, to draw the gods and to deliver this work into the world. So I am also struck by the fact that like this just started, like you said you were in design, but you weren't doing this kind of drawing until COVID. Is that accurate?
Yeah. I hadn't, I mean.
So how'd you just turn it on? What? How? Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I've always had drawing in the kind of background. It's kind of been something it's kind of come up for me, particularly at big transition points of my life where I've kind of just been drawing as a way of just processing and kind of stress relief and just helping me, you know. It's never been my career at all. And there's been long periods where I've done no drawing at all. And in fact, before COVID, you know, I hadn't picked up a pencil in like 3 years or something like that. But just before COVID happened, I was invited to, as part of another class I was doing some work with Hecate, the ancient Greek goddess of transitions and crossroads and liminal spaces. And in that work, I was invited to make a drawing. And I thought, oh, this will be fun. I haven't done a drawing for, you know, years. Let's see how it comes out. And so I put my pencil to paper and really quickly this beautiful, you know, quite a simple drawing, but very fluid for me. I was just struck by the fluidity of it. It just kind of poured out really quickly. And it reminded me, oh yeah, I do drawing. You know, I forgot. I forgot that I do drawing. And it was such an enjoyable process.
Was that the first time you drew a god?
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Because prior to that, the previous time that I had been doing some drawing was 3 years, quite a few years, like 10 years earlier, when I was in that transition space between leaving London and going into the deeper shack in the woods. When I was in the middle shack, I did drawing then for 2 years, and during that time I did lots of drawings of spirits of the place. It's probably the best way to describe them. They were very ethereal, very kind of wisp-like images of the kind of the plant spirits and the kind of earth spirits that I was just encountering for the first time, really, after living in London for 10 years, where my senses had been quite shut down, I think. So yeah, so there was a kind of like the spirit drawings period, then, you know, like a long time where there was no drawings, and then this more recent period where, yeah, for the first time I drew one of the goddesses. And so from there I just started drawing again, and then literally 6 months later everything shut down with COVID. I lost all my work. I was doing body work, like deep body work, movement work, group movement work with people. Couldn't do any of that anymore. Didn't have any money to survive on, have 2 children to care for, and was like, shit, what am I going to do now, you know? And it was obviously quite stressful. And so just to kind of deal with the stress of the time, I just picked up my pencil again and just started drawing, because it kind of brought me to that place where I felt calm and where I felt connected to something greater, where I felt like, there were resources in that place that I was accessing somatically inside me. And so, yeah, it went from there. And quite quickly, people liked the drawings, and I shared them on social media, and people asked to buy prints, and it just kind of snowballed, quite
It
literally,
just grew.
until it became my new full-time job.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
What's just struck me when you were sharing is like that this when your resources are dwindling externally, you can turn to resources within as a way of like seeking comfort or seeking security even. That's a really beautiful yeah, that sense of being connected and not being alone comes through saying yes to the creative spirit in a way, and channeling it through you,
Mm.
you know.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that probably came
Yeah.
out of the fact that I have got this long experience in body work, in meditation work, in kind of spiritual practices and things. So I've kind of cultivated that sort of awareness, or that kind of knowing in me as well. So it was easy to kind of default back into those places as my resourcing.
Yeah, I can relate to that. Like with my background in playing music, I was in bands from probably 15 to 25. Not like, a trained musician, but just punk rock bands, and writing music and playing music and allowing music to just be written. Because it does feel like, an allowing. And that kind of showed up when I started doing public speaking, and it shows up in my coaching work, and it shows up in my writing. And so there is like a kind of a through line of the inner experience of just saying yes to allowing something to come through you. And in
Mm.
fact, this past few years, I have really kind of embraced that even more and more by letting go of like judgments or stories about how crazy that seemed to have to be channeling something that's other. And the less I identify as the one doing it, like the more shocked I am at the outcomes. Like for me, it's typically insight, wisdom, in the form of language. It's not, I haven't put pen to paper. Maybe if I did, I would be able to draw. I mean, maybe everybody's
Yeah.
capable of all this brilliance, but something greater than me like shows up whenever I let go. So yeah, I'm curious how you relate to it. I imagine that when you're drawing the gods, that's not just a clever line, that there is some kind of like, there's not that much red in the picture when there's drawing. How do you
Yeah.
relate to it?
Yeah. I mean, so it's, I guess the way I kind of know that I'm in that place, or the way that I now subsequently have learned to kind of share that kind of experience with other people and teach them also about this, is I describe it as this kind of the kind of inner feeling of yesness. So there's a kind of like inner somatic position that I have that just feels absolutely yes. And if I'm in that place, then what comes, or what flows through it, seems to kind of come from somewhere else, or it seems to open me to something other to appear. So that was my first kind of fascination, I suppose, with the drawing the gods, was just kind of working with that in myself. Like, what adjustments do I need to make within myself? As I'm drawing, do I need to loosen my shoulders? Do I need to change my posture? Do I need to move my hips, so that I still get that constant yesness? So every line that I'm drawing is bringing more of that yesness out. So that was the first point. And then as I started drawing more and more of the gods, I started to also look into researching and exploring more. And I didn't know much about any of the gods either. It wasn't a mental thing that I
Okay.
thought, I'm going to draw the gods now. It
Well,
was
it's from reading your emails, it sounds like you have an encyclopedic knowledge of the gods, and that's kind of how and why these drawings happen. But you're saying basically
no,
it was the
no,
opposite. You kind of started
completely
learning about it
opposite.
after
Yeah.
drawing. Yeah.
Yeah, and I still don't know. That's why it's fascinating to hear about, the Nietzsche book from you. It's like, oh, great, there's another little avenue I can
Yeah. Yeah.
explore. It's like, I really know nothing. I still know nothing. I still know like a tiny amount about the ones that I'm drawing. But what I found was, as I was drawing, images or symbols or iconography would come into the drawing that I got that yesness feeling about, and I'd be like, well, what the hell is this? What what does this mean? Should this be in the drawing or not? Like, what is it? So then I'd go and do a load of research and see if I could find some kind of historical documents or any kind of mythology that supports what I was drawing. And, you know, then it also became equally fascinating. It's like, wow, there's all these stories out there that I had no idea about previously. So they became compelling in themselves. So then I did start to focus it more and think, okay, well, if I'm going to be drawing Dionysus, then, you know, how would people have called on him in the past? What would his invocations have been? How would they have called him into their lives? What offerings would they have made? What practices would they have done? So I started to learn more about it, but each time it's been led by the drawing, really, like demanding of me to learn more about who is coming, who's coming into being. So it's this ongoing process of discovery, really, and I still feel like I say, I know not very much at all about any of them, and I'm still learning more even now as I carry on my relations with them, even years later now after drawing them.
Yeah. How do you choose the models? Is it the god comes first and you try to find somebody who you can, that matches what you're seeing? Or is there a model that you come across and that inspires the drawing of a god, or is there both? I'm just curious.
Yeah, both things have happened, really. So sometimes, you know, I found a few models via social media, which, you know, there are quite a lot of artists models who have their own pages and their own accounts on social media, and they'll post things. Or just totally randomly, like in my Hermes drawing, it's just a random image that came up on my Instagram feed. And when I saw it, I was just like, I just kind of heard the words like, that's Hermes. Immediately, that's Hermes. And I
Wow.
just kind of knew that's him. And so thanks to modern technology, I was able to contact the guy and say, hey, do you mind being my model for
Right.
do you mind being my model
Right.
for this Hermes thing? But what's you know, I've told these kind of stories in other places. What's often amazing in those kind of situations is that then I find out that the people I contact have got their own connection with the particular god or
Oh,
goddess that I'm
amazing.
working with. So the Hermes model, he's always felt this kind of like mercurial connection, and he was considering having the caduceus, you know, the twined snakes and the wings tattoo. He was considering having Hermes symbols tattooed on his body even before I met him. So he was like, well, of course,
Wow.
I don't mind modeling for Hermes because I feel this too. So
Yeah.
yeah, and that's
What a
happened
gift to him.
several
I hope that he
times.
has I hope that he has a print of your drawing. What a gift
Yeah,
that
you
is
know,
to be able to see himself that way. Yeah.
yeah. But then sometimes, other times, I'll have a sense of wanting or feeling like a particular god or goddess wants to be drawn. Like I'll get little kind of sort of signals in the system of, you know, maybe seeing their name turn up or seeing stories or books about them here and there, or just different little flashes of things kind of constantly saying, you know, oh, this one wants to be drawn next. And then I might go and search and see, just look through all the models or people that I know until I see one that feels like that's the right one, really. That happened with Aphrodite. I was getting a lot of kind of, you know, Aphrodite kinds of images and symbols, and her name was appearing. And then I looked through, and again, it's that yesness feeling. You know, I was looking through my images and looking through who I knew, and I saw this picture of this beautiful model. And when I saw it, I was like, oh, that's her, that's Aphrodite. And I had that inner yesness again about the whole thing. So it's often like a sort of detective trail, I think. I feel a bit like a detective sometimes, you know,
Yeah.
following the clues and piecing it all together,
Yeah.
and sometimes not being quite sure myself what any of it means until, and even still when the images are complete, sometimes not being sure why certain things are there, or yeah,
Right.
strange.
How much do you live that way in the rest of your life?
What, following the
Like a
yesness?
detective, from following the yesness like a detective. Yeah.
Yeah, I probably do that a lot. Follow the
That's
yesness,
how you end
but
up in the deep shack.
it's the Joseph Campbell quote, isn't it? It's the, you know, follow your bliss, and wherever you are, the doors will open. And to me, that is the bliss. It's not like it's not like a kind of ecstatic bliss that's constantly there, but it's that kind of just that, it's almost like a subtle yesness sometimes, following that yesness.
Have you ever, because you're a mother and you've got two kids, two girls do you have, or
Yeah,
a
yeah,
girl and a
two
boy?
daughters,
Two girls?
16
Two daughters,
and
yeah.
13.
Okay, wow. Yeah, my boys are 5 and 9, but we just had our good friends from England here visiting, and their daughters are now 17 and 19. So I've watched them grow up from 1 and 3 till now. So
Wow.
when you are following your inner yesness and being the detective, do you ever have, I'm asking from my own kind of experience, do you ever have like hesitancy to live that way when it comes to like thinking about, but I have to take care of my kids, or well, that might lead me somewhere? Or if not, I'm curious how you've found, how do you be around that when it comes to kids parenting?
I mean, as parents, there's lots of like inner no's we get. Never mind yesness. There's a lot of inner no about parenting. Stuff that I really don't want to be doing. I'd much rather be, sitting at my desk doing my drawings. But generally, I think generally, in the wider scheme of things, I think I do still do that, and we do still end up doing things that look a little bit odd from the outside to people. I homeschooled them for till my eldest daughter was 12. She was homeschooled in the woods, and there was a lot of pushback from family and people about that, and people who didn't quite understand, and it just felt so yes for what we were doing, for where we were. And so I think and of course I teach them the same thing. It's, to me, it's like a stronger position to be in, for them to know their own yes, and to not be, especially now they're teenagers, to not be swayed and persuaded by what everybody else is doing, but to really learn to feel and to trust what their own, not only their own yes, but also their own no, which is really important in teenage years. Like, where is their no? Because they need to know how to not only feel that, but to embody it. And I've explicitly taught that to my girls, show me your no. And
That's great.
And when they have done that, which is equally difficult to live with when they're doing their full no to me, then obviously,
you've taught them and now they're doing it with you.
Exactly. So it's kind of it's a delicate balance, isn't it? Because you want them to really own that and to be able to embody their no fully, and at the same time they've got to be easy to live with. There's certain things that I just don't want them to do, no matter how much they're doing their full no with me. But also, I think it's about respecting that when they do go into their full no, I have actually backed down sometimes, and okay, fair play, you really know yourself in this moment, and I'm going to go with that. But yeah, it doesn't make for a peaceful life sometimes for me.
No, I get it. I don't think that parenthood and peace are like really it's not really what it's about, is it?
No.
Yeah. One of the things I've accepted is that peace is not primary for me. My friend James, and I were kind of into this work called the Three Principles for a while, which is like, it's just kind of a philosophy or kind of modern idea that kind of creates a sense of groundedness and well-being. It's a way of thinking about mind and consciousness and thought that kind of creates this pervasive sense of well-being. And then James just said one day, nobody wants to fuck in well-being, meaning like there's more to life than just peace and well-being. And that really speaks to me. And so like peace is a big thing for me, but I actually decided that like I'm passion over peace. I mean that both like in the priority, but also like I do like a foundation of peace. But yeah, so I'm a yes to the tumultuousness of parenthood and marriage and all the things. So I keep going. I mean, I know that Dionysus is right there, and I keep being drawn back to talk more about Dionysus and the impact your work has had on me. So this drawing hangs in my office, and it still does not escape me that I've got a nude drawing of a man on my wall, as like a guy that really I never thought I'd have a nude drawing of a man on my wall. And so I was an immediate yes to it. And so I've been kind of like, it's brought up in me, why? Like, why not? Why not have a new drawing of a man? And so just getting in touch with that kind of like the deep shame that we grow up with for nudity, for sexuality. And so we've had a little back and forth about like the challenge that you faced in getting your work out in the world because of that, the collective shame around nudity. Right. And so you've been shut down on Instagram, I think, or some of your pictures have been removed at certain times. So I guess I have a kind of two-part interest in this. Like, is nudity also something that emerged, the drawing of nudes, that's something that emerged when you started drawing gods, or was that there before? Has that been an easy thing for you to navigate? Was there a growth for you? And then also this whole dealing with the cultural aspect of shame, just curious what your experience has been, because you've been facing it consciously, explicitly for a while now.
I guess I've always been comfortable with nudity in myself. It's always felt
Mm-hmm.
just normal and natural. And, when my girls were young, growing up where we were in the woods, there would just be nudity around, and it just felt like
Sure.
healthy and ordinary. It was like there was so, it wasn't something that was kind of like giggled about or, pointed out. It was just, we were just nude around each other in a normal, healthy way as a family. And my kids would just play outside in the nude in the woods in the summer, and then they grew up thankfully with like no shame around their bodies, and when they then went to school and encountered other kids, and that kind of thing started to come in, they were like, well, why is so-and-so laughing at me because they can like see my thigh or something, like, what's going on? So yeah, it was a really I think I've just always felt very comfortable with it, and I guess all of my drawings, I guess I come back to nudity just because I love bodies. I'm a body worker. I'm so used to
Right. Yeah.
working with bodies of all shapes and sizes, and they're all so beautiful to me. Everybody's bodies are so magnificent and beautiful. And I say this often as well, just the fact that people have survived this far, whatever their shape, whatever their size, whatever their abilities or disabilities, it's just a miracle to me. And I'd often have people, when I would be doing massage work or body work, and they'd come in with so much shame that, they have to be covered with a towel straight away. And, I always ask people, what do you feel comfortable with? Is there any way that you don't want me to touch at all? And just seeing the tenderness and the vulnerability that people come with their bodies really touched me, and really made me, it really made me want to celebrate everybody's bodies, and to just, and to draw them, because I honor them. I honor people's bodies when I draw them. I honor everybody's bodies when I draw human forms. I just think that we're these magnificent creations with, so many miracles going on inside us in every moment, in every breath that we draw. So it's a curious thing for me to then encounter the huge censorship that my drawings come under online. It's like,
Yeah.
well, what are you talking about? It's just a body. I really don't understand it. And there is, there's obviously huge double standards in, what's allowed, what's permissible to see in a woman's body, and what's, and seeing a man's penis is still so taboo, apparently. And I just find it bizarre in a way. It's like, it's just a part of your body. Like, I'm not drawing pornographic images. I'm not drawing people, copulating or anything. I'm just drawing people's bodies as they are. So what's the problem? And even Dionysus, he has got that kind of, I mean, you talk about sexual energy, and I think of it as just creative energy, as kind of, procreating energy, but also just creating energy. He's like, generative energy. And to me, if you're suppressing sexual energy, you're suppressing creative energy, you're suppressing like life energy. And so, he's drawn there. My model just happened to be, beautifully endowed for the drawing. So I didn't emphasize anything. I just drew what I was seeing in my life model. And he's become both my most kind of one of my most loved images, I think, but also one of the most suppressed and the most censored. You know,
Sure.
even more than Aphrodite with her naked breasts and things, as people freak out when they see
Yeah.
a penis, even when it's
Uh,
just there
they do so
existing.
much more.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's jam a little bit. I mean, I'm sure you don't know exactly, neither do I, but like, I'm sure we can kind of like feel into what that's about. Like, the Dionysus drawing is, you know, yes, it's not pornographic, but it is fucking powerful. And I mean that to use the word fucking not just as an adjective, right? Like, it's like as a verb too. You know, I think, you know, the penis is a kind of symbol of like the threat of the power of that energy, right? And so I think it's, you know, both in its like the physical sense of like the idea of being raped by a man, but like then also just like what it represents, that the that's power to kind of penetrate, kind of, I'm just kind of riffing right now, but also that power to penetrate coupled with the wildness of Dionysus is what like society has tried to rein in. You
Mm,
know, the church has tried to rein in because of the danger of it.
mm,
Well, the supposed danger of it, you know. Um, that's why I feel when I look at it. I think that's why I was so struck by it. It's like, yeah, that wild man is a big part of me that I have like been told to sit like when I would tell the story about like when I was in grade school, my teacher, my teachers from like fourth grade on, they must have been in cahoots, fourth, fifth, sixth grade. They put my desk right next to the teacher's desk facing the class so that they could grab me. And because I was just so wild and I was like back, you know, before little, luckily before Ritalin, or else I would have been drugged into submission, but I had to be close enough that they could grab me. And I just thought it was the coolest thing. I'm like the teacher's pet. I'm like the assistant teacher, but like, you know, you know, growing up, I've learned to like keep that at bay, but like, you know, the drawing just kind of says like, it gives permission. I think that's what's so threatening about this drawing is it gives permission.
mm.
It gives permission to an energy that society is saying, no, 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 you shouldn't have that. You shouldn't be that. That's what I
Yeah.
feel.
Yeah.
What have you heard in the suppression or in the pushback from it? What kind of things do people say, or is it just an algorithm? Or have you ever heard from humans?
Um, I mean, yeah, I mean the algorithm just generally, you know, doesn't show it. But I have heard people
Yeah,
who like will say, "Oh, that's disgusting," or you know, "Oh, that's or did
really.
oh, yeah, or did you really need to show that?" Or you know, those kind of things. And I'm like,
Oh
and
my
I'm
gosh.
kind of I respond to that with kind of like curiosity. It's like, you know, because I recognize it's not about
Yeah,
it's about what it's provoking in the person and what their experience is.
of
And again,
course.
that could be something really tender in that person. So I always respond with
Mm,
curiosity and kindness, because actually
mm,
those kind of
mm,
conversations can be really rich. Then it's like, okay, that's interesting, you know, why do
mm,
you find it disgusting? What's going, you know, what happens for you when you see
mm-hmm,
this? And sometimes I've had kind of almost like therapeutic conversations with people where they've then come to a place where they've
mm,
realized some big suppression within themselves. You know, something that's they understand it's not about the picture at all. It's about what they're holding back or what they can't see in their own lives. So yeah, I mean, and also
yeah.
I know a few therapists who have some of my drawings in their offices, and they've proved to be quite,
Mm-hmm.
you know, useful talking points for some of these things too. So
They are.
yeah, yeah.
How about for you? How do how, once the drawings are complete and you're not drawing them anymore, but it's been drawn and it now lives as a piece, like what impact do they have on you?
Some of them I have up around the place. So I'm looking across at
Mm-hmm.
Daleks, she's also a horned
Mm-hmm.
goddess. She's the goddess of kind of they call her the goddess of thieves, but she's kind of like a Robin Hood kind of character. I feel, you know, redistributing the
Mm-hmm.
wealth. So she's definitely got pride of place in my house. Redistribute some wealth in the world. And then on my, I've got like a more focused altar space where I have Hermes and Hecate both over there, who kind of form the sort of the kind of crux of all my practices. Really, they're like the doorways through to the other ones.
Mm,
Um,
mm,
and yeah, those are kind of the main ones I have around. Um, and other ones, they kind of stay sort of. I've got them carefully wrapped and folded and sort of tucked away,
mm-hmm.
sleeping in little beds. I imagine them. But sometimes they,
Mm-hmm.
you know, sometimes they come out, and especially they come out because I, you know, I sell these prints of them, so I have this constant supply of pulling out a print and then sitting with a particular print and, you know, thinking about that one as I'm packaging it up and thinking who it's going to and writing a little note for the person. So it's almost like these little encounters come up with them in print form sometimes as well.
I loved the care that you took in the packaging of the print that you sent too. That was really a special part of receiving the gift. So thank you for that. You know, I'm sure I can speak for most of your customers that that's a great experience to be connected with the artist in that way.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
I
That's
guess
part
I
of the
mean
fun.
also like on a spiritual level, like does it evoke or invoke things in you when you see these two? Like, do they connect you with certain energies or maybe bring you back to?
Yeah, for sure. And like I say, I feel like they're like living beings in my household now that I have relationships with, and that, you know, like any relationship that changes over time. So so that's why it's nice to kind of have these little meetings with them. You know, sometimes I won't see one of them for a while, and then somebody will buy a print of one that I haven't even had any connection with for a year or something, and someone will randomly buy a print and I'll be, oh yeah, this one, you know, why is this one appearing again at this time, or what's
Yeah.
happening here? And each time I come back to them again, and, you know, like I say, each time I wrap a print, I'll spend some time just kind of being with that one again, and each time there'll be some new little insight or something new that I'll notice, or yeah, it feels very relational, I think, just having them around and, you know, randomly coming into contact. Because there's quite a few of them now. I think I have something like 30 different drawings now. So it's, you know, which one's going to come up today? Who's going to come into my life today? And
Yeah.
what are they going to say?
I was just thinking, it's almost like you kind of inadvertently creating your own tarot deck of these images that, like, you know, when this card comes up and then it's like, what is that here for? It's not random. Maybe it's like, you know, there's a synchronicity to it or a serendipity to it, and there's a meaning in it as a possibility. Maybe one day you'll create a deck of all your drawings.
Yeah, it's been suggested to me a few times. It might happen one of these days. I don't know. It almost also they're in sort of separate groups, it seems, because I got quite taken by the Greek gods and goddesses for a while. So there's a big group of the Greek gods and goddesses, but then there's also kind of the sort of gods and goddesses of the lands around here, like, you know, England, Ireland, Scotland, Wales. There's some of those as well.
Sure.
So there's little kind of sections of different ones. Who knows?
It's kind of like the X-Men and the Avengers. They're all part of the Red K. Elders universe.
It's like that. It's like that.
Is there any use of psychedelics in your life that at all that you can relate to any of this work,
I
or
think
no?
not ever since I became a mother. I think, well, even maybe before that, when I left London and was living in the woods the first time, my senses kind of just naturally just flowered open in this crazy way during that time. And I probably, you know, when I was in London, when I was just leaving London, was definitely an experimental time. But then when my senses just naturally opened up, and I realized, oh, you know, I guess I'd been shut down all that time I'd been in London just to kind of keep me safe in some ways. So much input and so much, you know, stimulation in London, and I was there for 10 years. So living in the woods, then it just deepened and opened more and more. So you know, I started to then like get high on like the smell of roses and and started to, you know, you just look at a blade of grass for long enough and it automatically starts to kind of, you know, all the patterns come out of it and it starts to move in weird ways. And I think just I started to realize that when I slowed down and when I spent time with nature and deeply immersed in nature and living in the woods as I did, especially the deeper woods for 9 years off grid, you know, living with the seasons, living with the rhythms of the land, eating the food from the land, giving back, you know, my waste products to the land in this kind of circular process, and doing a lot of ritual and ceremony in places too. I started to realize, well, I don't need psychedelics. Actually, everything's pretty psychedelic as it is. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
I think that's well said. Everything's pretty psychedelic as it is. I feel like, you know, prior to the vision quest that I've shared about in other episodes that I did like I guess a year ago now, I would have had a hard time believing that you could have a psychedelic experience without eating an exogenous psychedelic, because that was so dramatic for me when I only started like, I don't know, 4 years ago, even in, using psychedelic substances at all. And it was so dramatic that I wouldn't have believed that that was possible, like without something exogenous. But then the vision quest I went on a year ago, when I was just out in the wilderness on my own, just with very minimal things and amongst wild goats here on a lava field, and also going into a lava cave, a lava tube cave, and just like, and the experience that I had there were so psychedelic. Like I've shared in my other episodes, but like I had the experience of shape shifting, like into a goat, which like I didn't even really know what it was until I started explaining it after the fact, and people that knew about these things were like, yeah, that's what that was. And I was like, that was one of the most profound experiences of my life, and I hadn't even eaten anything, never mind had a psychedelic. And so I now I kind of feel like psychedelics serve the function of breaking people. It's kind of like a shortcut out of the matrix, but if you don't live in that matrix of like high paced, prefrontal cortex, like distraction constantly, then we are like so much closer to all of that, the psychedelic nature of reality. And it's almost like presence is the only thing that we need to really kind of access that.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't have the same experience as on mushrooms without them, but I definitely can, through being still and being open to the possibility, like I can start to have that experience more now. So I'm glad that I had the journey with those psychedelics for a bit, but now I'm actually more enamored with like, well, what if I could access it on my own and just have it be more of a pervasive state of being?
Yeah, exactly. And I think, like you say, I've got nothing against psychedelics. I think they can be useful. They can be really great in therapeutic
Sure.
situations too. And I think, for me in the past, they've provided a shortcut to kind of show me, oh, there's this other crazy thing that's really interesting to think about. But then I think also, meditation practice. I've had a long-standing meditation, various different meditation practices over many years now, and I think those meditation experiences can easily take me into quite extreme states where I need to kind of come back out and calm down.
Yeah.
I need to like ground myself and learn all the skills for grounding and kind of reassembling myself as well. So I think once I learned meditation skills and bodywork skills, I realized, well, it's actually, I prefer that way because I'm also much more in control. I hate being out of control. Talk about chaos and Dionysus.
Yeah.
I hate being kind of
Yeah. Yeah.
out of control in that way that feels, what's the word? Like I can't do something with it. It's okay to open to wild abandon if it can be then channeled. But I think for me, psychedelics are like so strong that it becomes almost like there's an inability to then do something productive with it. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah. I think certainly during the journey, like if you go far enough, I mean, for me, being an absolute control freak, like the journey of psychedelics was actually really fundamental to me learning what surrender meant in a somatic embodied sense instead
Right,
of just as
yeah.
an intellectual concept.
Yeah.
And so like, I only had LSD once and it was not a good experience. It was mixed with mushrooms and like, it was a terrifying 12 hours. But I'm glad I had that experience, that I could understand how I was creating that through my resistance. And in later experiences without LSD, it was, just learning what surrender is was important for me. And when I listen to you talk, you kind of live surrender, like surrendering to the yesness within you instead of like making sense and having reason and logic is a massive thing. Obviously, it's not about like returning to the wild completely and just like, not being a human, but
Yeah.
it's about both, right? Like being able to access both sides. And so, yeah, I love that. But the psychedelic thing, now I'm going to mention another thing about Dionysus, curious if you've heard of the book, The Immortality Key.
Oh, somebody just mentioned
Have
this
you heard of
book
this
to me the
book?
other day. I've not read it, but I looked it up because somebody said I should read it.
Yeah, I think the author's name is Brian Marescu.
Yeah.
It was fantastic.
Mm.
And it's about the supposed psychedelic origins of Christianity,
Mm.
and the Dionysian rituals that were previously pagan that were then brought into the Christian myths and the story of Christ to be able to sell these pagans on adopting Christianity.
Mm.
And it's like, I never even thought about it that, like, Jesus is like the bread and wine god. And it's like, wait a minute, Dionysus was the bread and wine god. And like, actually this book goes into like the research of like, they're actually finding like these caraffs that had like, for Dionysian rituals, that they have like little microorganism like remnants that they can now test with like, scientific experiments, that they can like tell you what was actually they were drinking when they were doing these Dionysian rituals. And they're finding wine in it. They're finding psilocybin mushrooms. They're finding ergot, which is the toxin on grains that leads to LSD, and even the animals that lived in these fields, that the lambs that ate this grass that had there's a concentration of the psychedelic substance in their skin. And so the idea of eating the flesh of a lamb like is possibly the root of like all of these psychedelic things. And so I just found that to be fascinating, that so maybe Dionysus was in some way related to the psychedelic. Maybe psychedelics were used. Maybe the Eucharist was a psychedelic journey that what people did, is kind of the point of the book. And that's what led to the religion we have today.
Yeah.
It's fascinating, actually.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look it up. It's somebody. You're the second person to mention it to me in a week, so I think I have to look that one up and see.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a good read.
Yeah.
My goodness.
Yeah. But so when you see the Dionysus picture in front of you, you have it there now. So tell me, what do you notice in your body when you encounter the image?
I feel energy from my groin up to my heart, not above my heart. I feel energy in that part of my body. I feel the tenderness of my fatherly love towards my boys. I feel the protectorship of my wife. I feel, what else do I feel? I feel my farm and my land. I feel a yesness. I feel...
What about specifically in your body? Like, do you notice any particular areas that might open or relax or soften, or even like tiny little movements, any little, maybe your posture shifts or anything like that?
Yeah, I think my posture becomes more upright. My shoulders go back, and I feel like a pull forward from like my heart all the way down to my groin. Like I just feel like this kind of like serve the world, kind of give to the world kind of feeling. Yeah.
And is that the same as
it makes me want to. Yeah.
Is that the same as when you said about the yesness as well for you? How do you know when you feel a yesness inside of you?
Yeah. I have just a warmth in my heart, and there's like a calmness in my heart as well. Yeah. I kind of for me, yes is the yes of the heart. Right? Like I could have like a yes of the head or yes of the groin, but like I've kind of given my heart, like given all my yesness over to the domain of the heart. And so when I feel warmth in that place, that's when I'm a yes.
Yeah.
So
it could be interesting, just as an exercise, not right now, but after we've finished chatting, is to to stand in front of the Dionysus image that's there, and just feel into that again, that you were talking about, this sort of sense of this opening between your heart and your groin, and this sort of your posture straightening, your slight pull forward, and just kind of really sink into it more and see what makes it more so. You know, what do you do in your body? Like, what physically do you do in your body to make it more so? How do you invite more of that sensation that you feel and the yesness, and just kind of play with it? And that's where I might, you know, like I might begin to do a movement exercise with somebody, is, you know, then where does it go? Then what happens next? And just what's your own natural impulses that arise in that moment, you know? And it might be something really small. Maybe you just, you know, maybe just your spine gently shakes, or maybe your hips move, or it could be something really big. It could, you know, it turn into a whole dance or something like that. But it can be an interesting
Yeah,
starting
I'm
point.
glad you brought this up. I'm glad you brought this up because I haven't really been exposed to this aspect of your work yet, but I've been interested in it, and I know haven't found a time for me or for a course or anything that it lines up yet. But yeah, tell me. I mean, thank you for that. I will do that. And now I'm curious to know more about like what what movement sits in your relationship to the creative, the unfolding, the source. You know, oftentimes we think about movement in the context of exercise, and for most of my life, that's like where I thought of it. And there's a good thing about that. But actually, I went from weightlifting into body weight about a year and a half ago, and it changed my life. I found this company called GMB. I just had the founder, Ryan Hurst, on the podcast, and they taught me to slow down. Their whole thing is about going slow and making movement beautiful. And that's like, you get all your strength through that. And it's like not about weight, not about reps. It's about make it pretty and go as slow as you can. And it's like, I got stronger doing that than anything I've ever done in my life, which has been incredible. And slowing down brought me into so much of awareness of my body. So I feel like that is a step in the direction of what you're doing, but you're doing something even in deeper and more profound. So what is movement to you? Why are you fascinated with it? What does it do for you?
Yeah. So I think movement, it kind of came out of when I was doing my body work with people. You know, I would have them laying prone, receptive on a table, and I'm kind of doing the work with them, but they're kind of receiving in many ways. So movement kind of, it becomes much more a co-creation, I think, then. So it's less about me imposing what I feel, you know, or what I'm sensing about their body into their body or with their body, and it's more about inviting. It's inviting someone's body to express itself, or to move in the way that it needs to move to heal. That might be a better way to describe it, because I really fundamentally believe and have experienced that we all know, our bodies know what they need to do to release themselves, to open themselves, to let go of tension, to, you know, to grow, to evolve, to all those things. And I think if you can give somebody a well-held space and permission to move and space to move, in a way that feels right for them. I always encourage people, you know, I'm never imposing what I think they should do, but I'm always directing people back to what's their body wanting them to do in this moment. So this again comes back to that feeling of yesness. You know, it's finding that yesness, which is unique to everybody. What does that feel like in your body? And then where does it want to go? What does it want to do? And what does it need to unlock or unwind in your body as it moves through you? Because I often find that people's creative blocks or emotional blocks or trauma blocks or any of those things, they're stored as like physical manifestations in the body. But it just takes a little bit of movement sometimes. And sometimes we do need to kind of go in, and I need to actually manipulate and work with somebody's body as well if something's particularly sticky. But a lot of the time, people will just move and let themselves move in whatever way feels beautiful. So it's really nice to hear that so somebody else is doing a different version of this. Whatever way, and I have a way of describing it, which anybody who's been on my courses will know. I'll say, you know, what's the most delicious way to move in this moment? what does your body find? One of my students calls it her yummy movement, and I love that. It's like, what's the most yummy and delicious way that your body wants to move? And I find that, that there's the path of ecstasy. There's the Dionysian way.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily
So
mean,
much so.
yeah, it doesn't necessarily mean it's a kind of, it's a kind of an orgiastic frenzy or anything like that. It can be really slow. It can be really subtle. It can be really delicate, but you find your own, the way that feels beautiful. It's kind of like an aesthetic experience in your body, and that to me is the way to healing, to release. And then for my creative work, it's the way I find to open myself to to whatever drawings want to move through me. And if I'm ever feeling stuck with a drawing, if I'm ever feeling like, oh, I'm not quite sure how this is working, or it's not kind of coming through, or it's a bit kind of difficult in this moment, then I'll step away and I'll move my body and I'll let myself, open. And maybe, maybe my shoulder needs to unwind, or maybe there's kind of, something that just needs to shift. Maybe I need to go out into the land and kind of feel all that, movement in the land, and move with those energies and forces, with the tides or with the clouds or the birds, and then come back to the drawing. And yeah, then it just flows. It just, pours through my body. So yeah. And I think that can be applied
There's
to
so
any
much in
kind
this.
of creativity.
I think so. Like the thing that's one of the things that stands out most from that is like how much you are relating to the body as like a receptive instrument for insight into the body itself, or, connection to something greater. And I've really become more and more fascinated with the possibility that like the thoughts we have aren't actually something that we're generating. It's like we're more like a receiver, and we're just like tuning in to frequencies like a radio. And then we're like accessing thought channels, we're accessing energetic things, and that we're just here receiving, maybe transmitting, but like, based on what we receive. And so that really speaks to me. I watched this documentary last night with my wife, who's been trying to get me to watch it for ages. She's a student of Dr. Joe Dispenza. Do you know his work?
A little bit, yeah.
Have
I
you
don't
heard
know
of
it
him?
too well, but I've heard his
Yeah.
name mentioned, yeah.
It's pretty powerful. She's been studying it, practicing 1-hour meditations for years. And this documentary was called Source, and it was not made by him, but made about his work by this research team that's been doing scientific research on his events and trainings for years. And it's like absolutely mind blowing, like the healings that the people are creating through these meditations, like stuff that doctors can't explain. The University of San Diego, I think, in Southern California, is doing the studies. So it's like pretty rigorous. And they have like, what's that thing that you have that sometimes people get cut out because it's like dysregulated and in their throat, and like it creates anxiety if they don't have it right. What's it called? They're
In the throat?
oh, what's that? I think it's near the throat. Yeah. It's like, it manages their stress, and sometimes people get it. Oh, I can't remember. There's an organ in the throat. It's like really common. If I said it, you'd be like, oh yeah, that. Anyway, this woman had one surgically removed, and then it grew back through meditation. She was meditating on it being healed. And the doctor, in the documentary, the doctor's like doing an exam to see how the healing's been going, and he like freaked out and like turned white and dropped the device that he was looking at it, and just like ran out of the room. And it's like, this is unexplainable. And people healing of cancer, like the kind of terminal cancer that's like, you're 40%, your bone marrow is cancerous, and then it's like completely gone, and like what happened. And it really is all about this, this idea that like our body is one of the beautiful idea in the documentary that I was like, yeah, that so resonates with me, is that like the body is matter, and it's responding to a field of energy. It's not that like the energy comes from the matter comes from the energy. And when you hold the intention of a certain energy, or when multiple people hold the intention of a certain energy around a body, that body will just come to meet that energetic frequency or pattern or field.
Yeah.
And it's incredible that they're, basically being able to show that happening now. more than just a person's subjective experience and saying it, but like showing it. Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I've seen too many things, especially in group movement places that in group movement spaces that I've held, watching people moving together and seeing the patterns and the synchronicities that happen. A lot of my group movement work, I'd have people moving with their eyes closed. So they're in a room with eyes closed, they're all moving, so they can't see what each other's doing. It kind of helps people just drop into their inner space a bit more and feel less
Sure.
self-conscious. But, and I'm kind of the witness to what's happening in the room. And the amount of just, really strange things, like, people, 4 people in different corners of the room, all doing the exact same movement at the exact same time. And people, coming together and just expressing these kind of almost strange, like geometric tessellated shapes and things. And then that kind of leads to a big healing release for somebody. And yeah, it blows my mind. This is, I come back to bodies being amazing on their own, but then bodies in synchronicity and union with other bodies, like, whoa. It really does become psychedelic, just watching it.
Yeah, it
Incredible.
does. That's one of the things in the doc. They have these things called coherence healings that they do, where like 6 or 8 people sit in a circle with their hands. It's very Mr. Miyagi. They like go like this first, and then they like put their hands out, and they're holding this intention. They're doing this meditation over a body, over a healy, and they're able to like measure the impact that this is having on this peripheral, and they're they can show like over and over and over again the healing these people go through when they're being and correlated to the number of people that are doing the healing. It's really powerful.
Yeah.
The other thing that like I was thinking of when you were sharing is the other thing that I experienced through practicing the GMB method was I realized how much of this is actually when I did their apprenticeship to become a GMB trainer. Not that I'm like a professional fitness person, but I really wanted to understand their methodology. And then there comes a point where you have to do your own programming. You have to create your own practice essentially. And I was like, I didn't realize how much of my life I had given over how I'm supposed to move my body to like fitness studios or like CrossFit programs or like YouTube video. Like I didn't realize that I had given the authority of moving my body away. And like, so we kind of know that story of like, we give our authority for like how we make our money over to like an employer. It's like, yeah, well, that's just what people do. And some people don't, but like, it's not obvious that we give the authority of how to move our body over. And so when you say to a person, just move based on what your body wants, like, I can't do that. What is, Jane Fonda say how I'm supposed to walk? I can't just walk, like whatever it is.
Yeah. You know what? That is the biggest thing, just to interject that is the biggest thing that I found when I was especially running group movement spaces in person, is just to get somebody to walk through the door. Even that is like huge for people just to kind of walk into a space. And then for them to actually move the way that they want to. Sometimes people like that would be like a major piece of work. It's like they didn't know how to move the way they wanted to. It was like, like you say,
it's not safe. That's the story. It's not safe to do what you want to do.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the narrative that we're here trying to get free from.
Yeah, exactly. And just to kind of, or even to take up space, to actually take up some space and to be observed as well. Some people find it really challenging to move as themselves, authentically as themselves, whilst being witnessed. It's like, so just these, they're like really tiny little pieces, and yet they're huge, and they can be, again, so powerful and so moving, literally moving for people to experience the freedom that comes, and the self-awareness and the self-knowledge of like moving their own bodies in the way that they actually want to, even to consider that. It's so beautiful. It's beautiful work to be engaged and involved in.
Yeah, there's like multiple wins on that front, right? Like you get the contact with like your receptivity, and you're able to know yourself better, and know what you need more, and know what your body wants, and be able maybe have a creative outlet. But you're also having that like categorical liberation from where the agency and the authority is for like your body. Like who determines whether or not your body can be seen, who determines whether or not you can move your body in a particular way. Like there's so many things like I could do with my body. Like even just right now, I have a physical therapist. I'm doing some physical therapy because I hurt my shoulder, and like they gave me exercises, but then I come home and I'm like, I think it's going to be better if I do this. And like I never, like some years ago, I never would have given myself permission to change the exercise that somebody in a lab coat gave to me and do it this way. But I know that what I'm doing is better for my shoulder than they do. I
Yeah.
don't need that external authority to be the one that's in charge of my own movement. And that kind of trust, I think it brings us home. And my opinion is it's what gives us access to creating a more beautiful world, because we're doing what's in our heart, what's right for us and what's true for us. And if we try to do what's true for everybody else, then we're all kind of like vanilla and nobody's accessing their uniqueness and their gifts.
Yeah, exactly. And just, just giving people that agency, I think, to be who they are, not what is imposed on them from outside. I was once working with a woman, and I have permission to talk about her, so it's okay. But she,
Okay.
she had no idea when she was hungry, for example, just something simple. I was trying to get her to identify her inner body signals and symptoms and kind of sensations, and she didn't quite know. She didn't have a clue what I was even talking about. It's like such a ridiculous question, what does it feel like inside? When she's like, she had no point of reference for it. So I went to the food thing. I'm like, well, how do you know when you're hungry? What's the sensation inside of you when you're hungry? She didn't have any clue at all. She said she knew she
Wow.
was hungry because it was midday, and she always eats at midday. And it was like, wow, okay. And that's again, I kind of honored her where she was in that place, and felt kind of amazed, because I knew that she had so much more to explore and discover about herself. But yeah, it's amazing how disconnected we can be. And I think this comes back to also being disconnected from the rhythms and the cycles of the planet, of the whole world system. It's like the more we can be in tune with our own inner rhythms and sensations and movements and tides and things like that, then the more we can also connect with the whole kind of sentient planet in a way, and realize that
Yeah.
it's all one thing, it's all connected.
Oh my God. It so is. Yeah. Like the first, the story about the hunger reminded me of, when I was in my early 20s, I got diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. And then in my mid 20s, I kind of found out about, you know, eating in a healthy way and how that can help. And so long story short, I ended up healing multiple sclerosis through a shift in diet, through choosing living in warmer climates. But the piece that I remembered was, when I started shifting my diet and paying more attention to my food, I started to develop a distinct difference in my ability to know what kind of hunger I was having. The simplest thing is like, am I carb craving, or am I actually hungry for some nutrition right now? Is my body wanting protein, or is it just wanting more like vitamins and minerals and just like substance? And now I have a very keen awareness of that, right? Like I know what kind of hungry I am, but I lived, 20 something years without, I was either hungry or not hungry. It was just all mixed into one thing.
Yeah.
And I think like when I first like had that awakening to like the nuances of different types of hunger, it was like the thing that most struck me and still does is like, when you don't have that nuance, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And it's hard to
Yeah.
imagine how much more you can feel when you have no capacity to feel. It just sounds like fantasy, right? It's like, so it's hard to even value it actually, because you can't access it. That's one of the kind of
Yeah.
traps or catch 22s and wanting to invite people into a more nuanced capacity to feel their body or to experience reality, is because when you don't have that nuance, it doesn't turn you on. It's like similar with meditation. Until you hit like a certain point in meditation where you become really witness to the whole experience, and then it's like bliss mode and you're like, oh my God, then it's like, it doesn't really have it. Then it becomes kind of self-motivating. But prior to that, it's like, this is boring, but it's like,
Yeah.
you don't have it. So yeah, I mean, it's almost like we need to like, I don't know, find a way to like carrot and stick, tempt or tease people into the experience till they discover something greater, some greater possibility.
Yeah, and I guess it has to become like relevant. Why? Why is it relevant to feel more in the world? Sometimes we want to feel less, right? That's equally a
True,
thing.
true.
And in my
Yeah.
classes, that will come up. People don't want to actually feel more because they're actually hiding stuff away that they don't want to be addressing or looking at. So,
Right.
but again, then we look
Yeah.
at, skills for how to work with that, and how to have agency over how much or how little you do feel in any moment. But I think it has to become personally relevant to people. Like there has to be a reason for them to want to do this, and whether that's just to have a much fuller and richer experience of life, or whether it's to actually feel more connected with the whole of the world going on around them, and to kind of have a deeper relationship with all beings everywhere. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, it has to touch people for them to want to do it, doesn't it? So,
Yeah, it does. And that's what I'm saying too. And I guess like, this is kind of nuanced, but like I very much honor everybody's autonomy and their own pre-existent desires and what their heart is calling them to. And I see myself living the purpose of being a champion for freedom for everyone and for love for everyone. And so I also see my role as being to some degree penetrative of the possibility of a greater freedom. So to be an instigator of greater possibility for freedom is kind of how I relate to myself. So whether that's through telling inspiring stories or asking questions that disrupt the current way of thinking, that opens the possibility for a desire in people that they may not have right now. It's kind of, it's a sensitive thing because you could take that too far and it could be all about me and I'm trying to like turn everybody into me or something like that. But I try to find this kind of like this middle space where I'm both bringing a greater possibility and honoring somebody's autonomy, and turning them on to that. Does that
yeah,
make sense?
yeah, it does make sense. And for me, I think I find it relevant that people feel more, because I think if we the more disconnected we become from our bodies, then the more disconnected we become from the whole world systems and everything that's going on. And it's kind of that's where we're more easily able to be controlled, which it's been a historical thing, hasn't it, that control of
Mm-hmm.
people's bodies, controlling people, shutting down people's feelings, whether it's empathy, whether it's physical feelings, makes people more easily controlled, makes them more malleable, makes kind of atrocities more likely to happen, on a human scale and on a world scale, on an ecological scale. If we're not feeling our bodies, we're not feeling the earth body, the whole body, and then we don't care what happens to it, right? So for me, it's become a little bit of a kind of crusade, in a kind of gentle way, because like you say, you can't force people into any of these things, but I just feel a little sense of triumph, I suppose, myself when I hear people who are reconnecting with themselves and are reconnecting with, the earth and nature and trees and creatures around them, because it feels a bit like a step in the right direction. It's a small thing that,
Yeah, I
that
think
I can
so.
do, but if it helps people connect and feel
Yeah,
part of
small but
something.
mighty. I mean, this is what your art is doing this, like for sure. It did it with me. I can see it's did it with Ed and for Ed's clients. And I've met others that have met Ed and he's brought them out for them too. So it's like, even in a little microcosm here on Maui, the other side of the world, I can see what your art is doing. And so, it's got shock factor in the most beautiful way because it's nude, because it's a god, because it's so beautiful. It kind of hits people. It's like, bang, there's a greater possibility here. And it kind of wakes something up in them, which I think that's kind of what I'm talking about actually. So, I think your art is that's maybe also why I kind of love it, because I can relate to like that kind of. I called it once when I was in a conversation with Bado Akamalafe, whose work as well. I called it an existential thunderclap.
Nice.
There's like just this moment where it's like whoa, you hear that, and then it's like everything that like your whole epistemology starts to rumble. You're like, wait a
Yeah.
minute, maybe there's something that it kind of gives you a sense that, oh, maybe there's something that I don't know that I don't know, and then at least you're curious,
Yeah, right.
and then you can walk
Yeah.
through the door and do the movement practice with Ed or with Red. Sorry, not Ed. Yeah. But you're speaking about the whole world too. That's something that I've become more and more kind of connected with. Like I mentioned my vision quest with like being with the goats and shape shifting, but also just living here on the farm and, caring for the trees and the hens and everything, and the symbiotic relationship with everything. But then also like I've heard the idea that solar flares can mess with your body. And I used to think that was like crazy, but then I've started looking into it and it's like, oh, it's actually scientific research that demonstrates that people are psychologically affected by the solar activity. And I'm like, fuck. Well, first of all, can I stop having to look for science every single time I like something sounds amazing? But in any case, as my background is physics and math, so I'm still like loosening the grip on that. But in any case, like the thing that it hit me, it's like this idea that the sun is God. It's like, it actually makes so much sense that we are like literally part of it. We are literally being affected by it in ways that we can't even understand. We're so entangled with it that we are part of it. Yeah. Like the separateness is the illusion, right? Like if there's solar flares and we're all in a bit of a mood, it's like, it's because we are inextricably entangled to it.
Yeah. Well, look at the moon. I mean, the moon very visibly affects the tides here twice a day. I can see it easily. Yes. You know, the moon's constantly pulling the waters towards it, and we're made of water, right? Mm-hmm. So the moon must be pulling our waters towards it twice a day as well. So. Mm-hmm. You know, it's very.
I mean, yeah, like very often animal cycles are linked to the moon. Like a woman's cycle is often linked to the moon as well. And and I'm sure there's other ways that it's affecting us that aren't as obvious as well. You know, it's become more living here, where basically we kind of go to sleep when it gets dark and we wake up when it gets light. It's pretty much the same throughout the year. It's not like in the north where it changes quite dramatically. And so we're more present to the phases of the moon just through because we can go out without lights when it's full moon and we can, walk around and see. And I'm also learning to paraglide right now. Do you know what that is? Paragliding?
Yeah. I have a client who does paragliding. Yes. So I've learned about paragliding through my client.
Okay, cool. It's amazing. I did it in my 20s for a little bit, but now I'm going through the full course and getting certified. I have a new friend here who's got a paragliding company. And that's like amazing too, because I'm developing a relationship with the wind in Maui and like really understanding it in a nuanced way, time of day. And you can almost set your watch by the way the wind moves and how it shifts in different directions when the sun comes up and the different speeds. And so there's that like cognitive understanding, but there's also just the ability to stand on a field, on a hill, on the side of the volcano and feel the wind.
Yeah.
It's very subtle. And like, my friend who owns this school, he can feel the wind shift by like 5-10 degrees, its direction. He can tell you how many, like about what the speed it is. Oh, now it's right. Now you can launch. And, it's like, it's there all the time, but we don't notice it for most of us unless it's like blowing 40 miles an hour versus totally dead still, if the trees are bending, oh, it's windy because the tree's bending over. I didn't notice it before that,
Yeah.
So
just
there's like no end to the depth that we can become aware.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was just going to say pretty much exactly the same thing. And also as you're learning about it now, so you're going to your whole body is going to become so much more attuned to the, the tiniest little wind currents going on all around you. And that's going to stay with you as well. So again, it's kind of like that sort of that body, intelligence, a kind of like somatic awareness of much more, like you said, than we'd imagined previously. So exciting.
It is exciting. That just reminded me of this, like the other side of this too. What is AI? Where does AI live in your life? I think I saw a post you're using ChatGPT or wrote something, but like as an artist, but also just as somebody who understands the importance of the body, what are you excited about, concerned about with AI, if anything?
Well, I think regarding the images that it's generated, I've kind of that doesn't give me any concern whatsoever anymore, because I just feel like they feel like irrelevant to me at the moment, because they're not they're not alive. That's the sense I get from them. Like I look at my own drawings and I can feel an aliveness in them that when I look at an AI image, in fact, when I look at an AI image, I not only get a sense of it being dead, but I get a sense of kind of it being malevolent as well, which, knowing what I know about my body, I'm careful not to spend too much time looking at the AI images. I don't know what it's about. I don't know why, but I just can't ignore that sense of, don't look at this that's in my body that's saying, don't even go there. So I pretty much don't look at any AI images. And if I see them coming up on social media, which is a lot, I just scroll on. I scroll on by, because they feel, I just disregard them altogether. But that said, I have been looking at AI and finding its uses for things like executive function. So like I've got like you probably, you know, juggling home, work, kids, everything that you're doing, and I've got, you know, 101 things to do in the week, and sometimes I get into that kind of art creative space and I kind of lose my executive function planning sense, goes out of the window. So I found it quite useful for just putting in, you know, here's what I need to do in my week, here's my weekly commitments, here's where I need to be at particular times, plan my week for me. And then I've actually found it quite useful. But in terms of like any creative activity, I'm still getting that sense of it being, I don't know, less than useful. And I've tried to use it for research. I thought maybe it would help with some of the research I was doing, but I find most of the things it's saying are like incorrect, or they need fact checking. And then it's hard to fact check
Right.
because it's checking against other AI generated content. So it kind of makes the job
Yeah.
worse and more difficult.
Right. Right.
So yeah, I don't know. How do you feel about it?
Oh, I have so many mixed feelings about it. But first, let me just share that it really hit me when you said that the AI images feel malevolent. Like that felt, I never considered it, but it felt immediately accurate for me. And it was like, actually, had a real somatic experience. Like when you said that is like, I hate strip clubs. I've only been a few times in my life, and I don't know, it just comes to mind because there's such an inauthenticity in the intimacy that it was like, it like, yeah. The few times that I've been there, like I just ended up walking out because like it was just, there was something so dark about the inauthenticity of the intimacy for me. And that's almost like that same thing. Like there's these images that are made to be beautiful and that are copying beauty, but it's like the air quotes is less, it's something less than nothing. It's almost like I got this, like I think I moved my hand towards the camera because like as you were speaking, I'm like, yeah, it feels like this black hole that like is actually sucking energy out
Yeah.
of me.
Yeah.
And that's really, well, just amazing that you were able to articulate, like notice that and articulate it. And that when you did, it like really landed for me so much. And I don't know what that's about or why that is, but I feel the same way when I read anything that's written by AI that's meant to be something that you would think is written by a human, and it has all the right kinds of words, but it lacks soul.
Yeah.
Like when I read it, I feel like I just like walked out of a strip club that I didn't want to be in, or looked at an AI image where I got all the right things, but I feel empty inside.
Yeah.
Like it emptied me in a not a good way. I don't know why
Yeah.
that is. There's something, I don't know what it's doing, but I can
Yeah.
relate to the experience.
Yeah, I have the same experience. I think just because I'm so attuned to this yesness, you know, and so attuned to my inner sensations whenever I encounter anything, and so I can't ignore this quite strong feeling of like repulsion, I suppose, from it. And even actually, you know, even I'm wary. I'm feeding all my things I'm doing in the week and getting it to plan out my week, and even that, I'm kind of thinking, you know, I'm giving it all this personal information about myself, you know, where is it, what's happening with this, where's it going, it's going to start knowing quite a bit about me if I keep doing this. So I don't know,
Yeah.
but that's more of a logical concern. But I have a very strong somatic repulsion to it, and I don't know what it's about. I don't know why. I don't know if it's just because of that strange, you know, did you ever get that thing, like I used to be really afraid of dolls when I was a child. I was like spooked out by them. I couldn't be in the same room as a doll.
After seeing Child's Play, like Chucky or
Then I didn't
something.
even see that. I probably wouldn't even see that because I was
Okay.
kind of really freaked out by dolls.
Yeah.
But even as a small child, I didn't have any dolls at all. And maybe there's something about that, like something that's kind of like a facsimile of something. But as you were saying, it's not real. It's devoid of life. You know, it doesn't. It doesn't. When I look at my images, I receive. I'm kind of charged. I'm filled with from them. And like you say, when I look at AI, I feel like something's being removed from me. Something's being sucked from me. So I don't know what it's about. It's curious, that's for sure. There's no
Yeah,
getting
it's
away from it
curious.
these
It's
days.
curious. Well, no, that's the other side. So it's kind of, maybe an interesting paradox. Interesting to me that like I am both repulsed by AI in certain ways and running straight towards it in other ways. So I have a partner in a company called Awaken, and that we've created an AI coach that models my voice and my way of being. And it's not like the first thing that I the first insight I had when I started using Chat GPT is like, there's no soul in this. I don't really want to like create something that like tries to be me in the sense of like sharing my ideas necessarily, but like everybody's going to AI to ask it questions to get answers. And I thought like, whilst that may look useful, it's extremely disempowering because it atrophies your capacity to find answers within yourself.
Right, exactly.
And so my simple insight was, what if I designed an AI chatbot that only reflected you back to your own inner authority? Okay. And so we've essentially created an AI chat that like flips the script, and whatever you say to it, whatever you ask it, it turns it into a question and points you back to yourself and tries to help you to find your own answers. So, you know, it's an experiment, and we've given it my voice, and we've given it the kind of way of the language that I use, and we've given it to a sample group of my clients, and it's both exciting and terrifying because the ones that have used it are like blown away. And they're like, I've had multiple people say, I was in tears talking to you. I talked to you for which is also trippy. I talked to you for an hour, and it's like, it's not me, but I've tried to create this thing that is me. And it's like really exciting that we've created this thing that's like having that impact. But at the same time, it's like, well, first of all, that's like $50 a month versus like my coaching fee. So that's not going to work for me unless thousands of people are using it. But like on a more direct level, just existentially, it's really trippy. I'm going through this like major psychedelic experience right now with creating this thing that is creating an experience that's similar to being with me, not the same. The real thing is still better, as my clients say, but like, yeah. And so, you know, I don't know where this is going to go, but I'm kind of playing both sides. You know, I'm using it and trying to like understand it because I think it's going to have a massive impact on my industry. I think there will be things left that our humans can do that the AI can't, but I don't think we know right now what those things are. And so I'm kind of running towards this as a way of like trying to find out first, you know, like what is, and so every time that they have an experience with the AI, it's like, that's profound. I'm like, oh, what was that? And like, and then what about when they're with me? What did I do that the AI wasn't doing? It's like, and then you might think, oh no, I'm safe. And I'm like, well, how can I get the AI to do that? Yeah. And it's actually like this kind of weird thing where I'm like trying to get the AI to do everything that I can do as a way of like isolating what it is that's uniquely spiritual and human that's left. Because that's like a deeper knowing of what I am actually. What am I when I'm not what AI can do? Yeah. What AI can replicate. So I do, on a spiritual level, I feel like this is the AI tidal wave that's coming is going to force us to know ourselves more deeply, maybe in the way that we've kind of offloaded the Apollonian and we'll return to Dionysus in a way. Yeah. Because that will be the only thing left. So that's my, you know, my kind of positive, that's my, what's the word? My optimistic hope for AI. Yeah. It's not so much the nirvana that AI is going to produce for us, but through it taking away some of the things we identify with, we'll be left with something deeper. My hope is that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's, you know, it's fascinating, isn't it? It is, you know, there is that kind of sort of willful temptation, like where is it going to go? I mean, I remember when I was like 11 years old and I was sitting with my ZX Spectrum typing pages and pages of code into it and, you know, trying to make it play games. My biggest dream at the time when I was like a little, you know, young kid was that my computer would like talk back to me one day. And, you know, here we are with it happening. So there's a certain...
and now you want it to stop. Yeah. It's like,
there's a certain excitement to it, of course, you know, for any kind of like nerdy kid like I was, it's like a dream come true, you know. But I like the way that you talked about that, using it to kind of to help people become more self-reflective rather than just offloading their thought processes to somewhere else. Because I think those are the kind of small differentiations that can make all the difference. Because like you were saying, people are finding that if they're outsourcing all of their thinking to AI, then their own brains are, you know, their own processing skills are atrophying. So where do you go with it? I don't know. It's an interesting time.
My friend was just here visiting. As I mentioned, my friend visiting from England, he was saying he stopped using Google Maps. And I was like, why? He said, because it's making me more dumb. Like, and I was like, come on. And he's like, so I just turned it off while we were driving around the island together. And I was like, holy shit, I don't know how to get places that I go all the time.
Oh, wow.
I've lived on this island 4 years, and I started getting lost just going to the recycling center
Wow.
because I'm so, and he's like, yeah, that's what happens is we lose our ability to navigate because we're not present with where we're going. And, and at first I was like, oh, it's just, I guess, is it just about like, oh, now I don't know the roads in Maui versus I do know the roads in Maui? Is that what it is? No, it's not just about that. It's like you're actually atrophying the navigation capacity, which doesn't just help you to get around Maui. It helps you to get around the world. And not only that, it helps you to get around in other ways that are like more complex things that emerge out of your physical ability to navigate the physical world. And so it's not just about navigating reality. It's about navigating your life, navigating a relationship. And it's like, holy shit. So I've stopped using it now just for the past week. And it's like, wow, that I can really feel my loss of my ability to do that. And so I don't want to do that with AI either. I don't want to go to it every time. Like when I'm writing sometimes, it's like, oh, how could I say this differently? It's like, oh, I'll just go ask ChatGPT. It's like, no. If I do that, then I get worse as a writer.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And that's part of the joy, isn't it? I think of any creative process is that struggle and is that kind of like wrangling with it. Oh, what is the right way to say this? What is the, and then kind of coming up with something even better. That's part of the whole joyful process of creativity. And if we're outsourcing that, then what's the point?
Then what's left? I have to say that so what's the point? Yes, but I have to say that if I instead ask the question, then what's left? I still am kind of interested and intrigued. What would I be if I wasn't that? I'm not saying I'm up for that journey yet, but I'm just like, I'm always looking around every corner. I'm like, I wonder what would be left if I couldn't navigate and ChatGPT did all the thinking for me. Would it just be a vegetable and like, would it be like the Matrix where I'm just like plugged into this thing and I'd just be a sort like, I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah.
Red, this is, I mean, I've enjoyed this conversation very much. Is there anything else that you've thought would be fun to discuss today or would love to share about your work? Because I'm feeling the opposite of emptied. I'm feeling very filled by this.
No, we've covered quite a bit here, haven't we? Yeah, I can't think of anything that I particularly feel like a burning desire to share in this moment.
Yeah. Any more curiosities about me? I mean, I loved your question about the impact that your art, your piece Dionysus has had on me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just always curious in that aspect because, like I said, for me, I'm on a process of discovery with each one of them anyway, and I'm still learning what they mean and what they are in my life, and what that will be for me is completely different to how somebody else will experience or receive them, or have them work on with them in their lives. So I'm always just really curious to hear how they land in people's lives, where they sit, literally the location that they're in people's houses. I get people to send me pictures, as you know, and how they impact them and what they're doing, because that aspect of them I had no idea about until people started reporting back to me, oh, I've got this picture and now I'm noticing this curious thing is happening in my life, or it's inspired this particular thing. Like one guy has the Dionysus print, and he's been it's inspired his whole like weight training program. It's inspired him to kind of like shift his body, his physique. He saw this picture and he was like, that's me. That's me. I can't see it just yet, but that's going to be me. And he looks at it as his kind of training goals, and he looks at the Dionysus every time he begins training. That's cool. So it's really good to hear these stories of how they actually impact people.
Well, I've got more to share then, because that reminds me of something else that this is two things I want to share actually. So I'm glad I asked you to ask, because I've one of my practices is to kind of like to go through a process of forgiveness for self-judgments and to find out like the truth beneath that, and to capture an idea about who I am that's more true, that was being covered up by that, and then to take that and turn it into a mantra and be with it on a regular basis. And one of the statements that came through kind of intuitively one day was, I have the body of a god. And this was years before I heard of your work or have seen this Dionysus. And it wasn't like, I've never been like a bodybuilder or anything like that, but like I just got connected to, whether it's like Atlas or like just this image of a Greek god. And like I remember reading a quote once about how every man should find out what his body is capable of, in his life, and to become strong. And so it was just this mantra that lived in me. It wasn't like a hard goal, but it lived in me. And then once I had this drawing of Dionysus and being with, I have the body of a god, and I discovered the GMB, but my body started to move. I started to take actions that moved me more in that direction. And for, a couple of years ago, for the first time in my life, I had kind of created a body that was noticed. Like, I'd never had the experience before of like just going for a run and people like saying things to me while I was running, or, and it was actually, I actually freaked out from it, if I'm honest. Like, I actually backed off, and I like, cause I started liking it, and I didn't like that I was liking it, because it felt like it was becoming like an unhealthy dynamic. But in any case, like, there certainly was the drawing of Dionysus and the Greek god thing. And, this guy's got like an 8-pack, he's ripped, he's like, great shape. And so it is inspiring especially when you couple like the energy of Dionysus with the physique like that. So it certainly has played a role for me in like bringing my physique to a certain point. And the other thing that I didn't share is that my wife is a wine expert, and she's a wine expert, having left a 17-year career in optometry. And so she shifted careers, and that was at a point, not long before we got married, maybe a year before we got married, like a year or two into our relationship, where, she just wasn't happy doing the work that she was doing. She did the thing that she was supposed to do. She became an optometrist, and had that career and made the money, lived in central London and worked at all the best clinics, and didn't love it. I wouldn't say, probably wouldn't go as far as hate, but didn't enjoy going to work. And like, we just had the conversation, like, what would you do if like you could do whatever you want? And basically there were no rules, and you could live beyond the wild, live in the wild, like do your own thing.
Yeah.
Like we didn't have the word Dionysus at that point, but it was like, oh, I'd love to study wine. And it was like, then she just, we supported her in going on that path. And,
Great.
6 years later, she had a degree, and she used to work at Vinopolis in London. I don't know if you remember that place, but there was a wine museum there, and she used to do champagne tastings on the London Eye, and she's done private wine tastings in different places now. And so like Kalpna living as this, like with a strong relationship to wine, and also through her meditation practice. I don't really drink alcohol, but like Dionysus also holds this kind of energy of like, almost like it helps me to feel connected to her wine interest, even though I'm not like a wine person.
Yeah.
Because there's like it's like an energetic crossover, And so, yeah, I think, having this drawing there kind of keeps me present with how, even though I'm not into wine and she is, we are both into the deeper aspect of it. Yeah. So it gives me a sense of connection to her as well.
Yeah, exactly. And wine is kind of like the essence of transformation also, in many ways. Like you're saying, like the Eucharist, it's like the substance that then facilitates transformation. So it's an image, it's a symbol for a deeper meaning, I suppose. And there's all sorts of different ways to be transformed, all sorts of different things you could interchange wine with that will be the agent of transformation. So Dionysus himself is that same agent of transformation. So
yeah, from grape juice into alcohol, and that whole process, and how it transforms us when we drink it sometimes, and in different ways. Even obviously there's like getting the drunkenness, but it's also like, little nuances of things that Kalpna has understood about wine, like the way that the wine is made and how it's processed determines whether a person has a hangover or not, like what kind of immune response they might get. And it's like, so there's so many aspects to it. But
that's amazing though, that you're
I hope
that your wife is like the
wine.
She's the wine goddess.
She is. Yeah. She's like she's the Dionysian priestess.
Exactly.
And the Immortality Key in Brian Moresco's book, that most of the priests were women, or all of them were women for the Dionysian rituals as well, which I found interesting as well. Definitely. The ones who basically handed over the wine and the medicine. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
You're surrounded by him. In all of his forms.
In all ways. Yeah. We have a vision to build some trellises and grow some grapevines here as well on our land. So that will come.
It has to be done.
Thank you so much, Red. This has been wonderful.
Thank you. It's been really great to chat.